Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Brendan, and if you didn't know, now you know. Welcome back to the channel. And the wait is almost over for Bitcoin as this massive consolidation period and squeeze is coming to the end. Now, Bitcoin is still rejecting the 50 EMA, and my thoughts haven't changed too much on this, but I want to give an update because this is going to be quite the significant move once this breaks out, and I do believe that this is going to happen in the not so distant future. So if that sounds interesting at all, make sure you guys stick around for the entire length of the video, as there will be important information discussed the entire way through. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive on into this one. Now again, with Bitcoin sitting inside of this massive bear flag, or this pennant as some like to call it, this is a pretty substantial part, because with Bitcoin sitting inside of this, we can tell two things. One, there's consistently lower highs and there are consistently higher lows. What this does is this is squeezing the price action of Bitcoin into this very small area, and you can kind of compare this to building up pressure until the pressure can no longer be held and it explodes. So imagine this like a water balloon, and we're flooding it in, and we go from high to low to high to low to high to low to high to low, and eventually this is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller until the bubble or the pennant pops. Now, obviously this should have to pop in one of two directions. Either one, it breaks downside, which this is leaning to do more than it is to the upside. I would probably put this at like a 16, or excuse me, not a 16, a 60-40, or maybe like a 35-65, something like that, but definitely leaning in favor of the bears here. The reason for that, as I explained in the last video, is that this is coming off a massive head and shoulders. There's a death cross on the 4-hour chart, which is the one that we're looking at. And again, this is a breakdown and then the pennant forming, which is almost always in favor of the bears because it is otherwise classified as a bear flag. Now, on top of this, Bitcoin is rejecting the 50 EMA, which is this yellow line that we have seen over here on the 4-hour time scale. And we're going to take a look at the daily in just a second, but volume is also falling off as well. So there's a lot of things that are kind of working against Bitcoin right now. It seems to be that it is rejecting the 50 EMA, at least for the time being. I really don't see the 50 EMA being like that strong of a resistance. But what I do see here is with Bitcoin being inside this, it does have potential up to, and if we want to measure this actually, from where we're at right now, Bitcoin has potential for another at least 6-7% to the upside, coming back up to like 38, 39. And if it can break that, then I would see the next resistance at around 11 to 12%, up to around 40, what is this, around 40,000 and then 42,000. However, if Bitcoin decides to start breaking this pattern and hitting new lower lows, immediate support is probably going to be around 35,000. Below that, we're going to have some support at 33, 34,000. And then after that, it's going to start getting pretty bloody as we start breaking into the lower ends of the 30s. And if 30K does break, I would imagine that we see quite the fall in Bitcoin's price, because I really don't see a whole lot of support on here until like 24,000, and even below that. I mean, you have really kind of this area between like 26 and 24,000, which I think could be a good pocket. And if that doesn't catch, I think Bitcoin's going right back to its previous all-time high from 2017, which is going to be $20,000. Now, obviously, I'm speaking really fast. There's a lot to talk about here, and I don't want to make this video too long because I want it to be kind of a quick update. But with where we're sitting at right now, again, the pressure is building on Bitcoin. And sometimes one of the hardest things that you can do is do nothing at all. And that's kind of where this is at. If anything, I am seeing 35, 36K as an accumulation area, because in the low chance that this does break out, this is going to be a beautiful price to buy at. And nonetheless, if we zoom out even more, and I do want to measure this one out before we go to the daily, from high to where we're at right now, Bitcoin's still down around 43, 44%. And that's still a pretty good area, because that means if Bitcoin were to return to its all-time highs from where we're at right now, you would make around 80%, which for me, I'm pretty content with an 80% gain. So I'm still using this as an accumulation zone, very slowly adding very small incremental buys down here to kind of dollar cost myself really just further and further towards the downside to get the lowest possible entries. But with this happening, you know, again, I am fully aware that this could break, and hoping that it will break so that we can always accumulate more. But in the rare case that it doesn't, I still make money on what I have invested. So it's kind of a win-win scenario. Let's go ahead and move us over to the daily. And on the daily chart, I think one of the most significant things that I've talked about previously is that, yes, we had this range between like 42 and 30K, which is a pretty fat range, if I'm going to be honest. I think this is like a 30% range. And with Bitcoin rejecting the previous 200 EMA on the 1-day timescale for the first time in, I mean, I don't even know how long, in a very, very long time, maybe even a year. I mean, I think the last time that Bitcoin rejected really rejected it was over a year ago. Moving back to where we're at right now with Bitcoin rejecting the 200 EMA and being below the 50 EMA, this death cross, which is this 50 EMA and 200 EMA, is getting closer and closer. So that's something that is making me nervous. Obviously, this could just be a fake out. It could be a dip. But from a macros perspective, I am again still struggling to find any kind of bullish sentiment in this. Not to say that there's no long-term potential, but in the short term, rather, Bitcoin just doesn't look too good from the daily and the 4-hour timescales. Same thing with the MACD and the RSI. They tried showing some sort of bullishness, but really nothing happened from it. They weren't able to break out to any kind of higher high. There's still this massive trend over here of consistently lower swing highs on this daily RSI, 1, 2, 3, 4, now 5 separate times. So with this happening again and again, obviously with moves like this is just a matter of time until this squeezes and does show some sort of a breakout. However, until I see a higher swing low somewhere down here, I'm really not going to be too convinced. So I think in the least, Bitcoin's going to have to take some sort of a move to get it back towards the oversold territory before it can really kind of go on another bull run, so to say. Moving back to the daily, again, this is what it looks like. I think that this really doesn't have that much longer in here. Again, these pennants are symmetrical triangles. Usually like to stay in here for around 75% of the way through is when they like to break out, and we're kind of sitting right at that zone right now. Not to say that it can't go a little bit longer, but I think it would be very odd if we just continued to go consolidate and go sideways right through this pennant. I think, come in the next probably in the next week or two, give and take that on the lower side of things, sooner rather than later, I think that Bitcoin will see an explosion through one of these either support or resistance areas. And when that does happen, it's going to be a pretty volatile move. Now, moving back to the 4-hour, I want to do a quick little kind of final analysis here, but I want to know your guys' thoughts on this in the comment section down below, because with Bitcoin being at such a pivotal point right here, obviously there's so much happening, and this is one of the areas where I think that you can't overthink it. Now, again, nothing I say is legal, financial, or tax advice in any sort of way, but this is one of those areas where you really can't overthink this too much. You can't micromanage it. Sometimes you kind of just have to sit in the background, know that, if X happens, then Y will happen, and if Y will happen, then X will happen, kind of just saying, all right, well, this is where support is and this is where resistance is, and or vice versa. This is where resistance is and this is where support is, and if one breaks, we're going to continue to tank downwards, and this is the reason for that. And if this breaks, it might be get ready to start forming a new trend of consistently higher highs. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. Obviously, this is such a risky area for either side. I think that, again, for the bulls especially, until there's some sort of higher high, I really don't see a reason to be bullish on any of this. But ultimately, time will tell. Am a little bit nervous about the bullish side of things for one more reason. It was something that I was seeing today, is that we are holding the relative same level of support for the most part over here. Obviously, we're having some wicks, but a lot of the candle body closings and even some of the wicks ending up right in kind of this golden pocket area does make me think that this is, again, more bearish, because almost a descending triangle-like formation is forming over here, in the sense that resistance is falling harder than support is rising. And so again, that kind of tends to make me believe that pressure is actually focusing downwards instead of upwards, because if support is struggling to move up and resistance is continuing to build towards the downside, that makes me think that the floor is weaker than the ceiling, and again, that a breakdown would be more probable in this scenario. But sometimes Bitcoin isn't always rational, and you do have things like explosions to the upsides out of what would appear to be a very bearish scenario like this. But ultimately, time will tell, and none of us can tell the absolute future. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this. Hopefully you did find it insightful in some way. I want to know your guys' thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Let me know, are you bullish? Are you bearish? What do you want to happen here? And what is your game plan? Because I love being able to interact with all of you in the comment section down below. That being said, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all very, very soon.